So Derek Carr released a pretty lengthy statement. He's pretty calculated, to be fair, for somebody that is, anyway. Derek Carr released a big-time statement saying goodbye to Las Vegas and Oakland today. What's the next step, and do you see potential landing spots for a Derek Carr?
I think that's yet to be determined, right? So I think there's a lot of teams that obviously need quarterbacks. But, where Carr is now as he enters 2023 and he's got that large option contract. And as you move forward, right, he's got base salaries in 23 of $32.9 million, 24 of $41.9 million, and 25 of $41 million. Now, none of those are guaranteed, so you can move on to them. But do you want to pay that? I mean, that's the question. And so the contract is worth something to the Raiders. Now, I don't think you're going to get – the Raiders are not going to get a first, second, or early pick for this. I think this would be an easement trade, meaning that we'll easily send him to you. You work out the contract, and everybody's happy. I think that's what you're looking at. And at some point, if teams are calling the Raiders back saying we're not interested, we're not going to mess with that contract, that tells you they're willing to compete in the open market, feeling like unless they get him at their number, they don't. So from the Carr standpoint, if you're Carr's agent, you want to try to facilitate a trade. I know it doesn't seem like that, because if you facilitate a trade, you're not going to take – you kind of have a sense of what you're going to make over the next 3 years. If you don't facilitate a trade and you become a free agent, now it becomes what's the market want to bear. And if you take that risk, it could be deadly.
31 years old, 9 seasons with Oakland/Las Vegas, a player that is oft debated with fans, and I'm sure front offices alike, Michael Lombardi. There's a lot to like. There's a lot not to like. I've heard Washington as a landing spot. Let me just be clear about Washington. Look what they just did for Carson Wentz. They gave up some of their future for Carson Wentz. They're going to do the same thing for a 31-year-old Derek Carr. It's going to be interesting to see where he ends up.
I think Washington, I know they fired Scott Turner when we were off, Patrick, but what does Washington do? What happens if Washington agrees to a sale in the next 2 weeks? Do they then make changes on the coach? I mean, I think there's so much uncertainty in Washington, but just on the surface, on the depth chart, there's no doubt he could go there. I was told, and I don't have the direct indication, but there's been 15 quarterbacks in the history of the NFL who have started more than 130 games. And more than 130 games. And Carr is the only one who hasn't gone to a Super Bowl, hasn't won an MVP, or has been like constant playoffs. So that's why we have so much debate about him, because when you watch him play, he's very talented, got a great arm. But the reason he hasn't won a lot of games is underlying factors. Now, we know that there was a moment in Las Vegas where they wanted Brady to come in, and I don't know, I think Gruden said no, but, I think this has been going on, because to start this many games and not be able, and only have 2 winning seasons in your entire career, there's something else going on. Now, maybe when he goes somewhere else and the team's better around him, he can improve. We shall see. But the way this has got to work, he's got to be careful. He wants to get that contract that he negotiated. He wants that to be fulfilled. Whether it can happen or not, I don't know. We'll find out in the next couple months.
Man, Derek Carr is just the tip of the iceberg. The quarterbacks are the discussion, whether it's Brock Purdy, Skylar Thompson, potentially Anthony Brown in Cincinnati for Baltimore, the third stringer, as I mentioned, but also off-season wise. I just wrote this down. So Tua, big questions, what's going to happen with him. Of course, Derek Carr, we just talked about. Lamar Jackson, some conversation, he could be on the move. And Tom Brady. I mean, it's just nonstop. Like the Brady rumors are going to be the most persistent in the offseason. It's not even close to Miami.
I think the Lamar
it's going to
ones.
Be nuts.
I think the Lamar ones are. I think Lamar is going to be because I don't think he's, he obviously, there's a disconnect between the rehab, the playing. Now, we're seeing some movement in that line. It went down, so some play, DraftKings in New Jersey here has got it at 8.5, so, and Circa there in Las Vegas is at 9.5. So, and there's 9.5s and there's 9s. This is about a 1 point fluctuation. But I think this lack of, I don't want to call it cooperation, but this lack of synergy between Lamar and the team in terms of the rehab, can he get back, can he not, I think is going to spill over. And so I think ideally Lamar probably would like to go back to Miami and play down there. Who wouldn't? Who doesn't want to play with Tyreek Hill? And that lends itself, does Miami entertain trading Tua or trying to get another quarterback for Tua? I think that's the question that you have to answer if you're the Chicago Bears. Are you willing to go down the road here with Justin Fields? Or are you willing to say, I need to take another quarterback and move forward and then trade Fields? I think there's a lot of uncertainty. I think Lamar will dominate the landscape in the offseason.
Back up a little bit. You think the Fields conversation is going to be legit? Do you think that is going to be posturing on the Bears' perspective as far as trying to garner value at that number one spot? Or do you believe they truly may make a switch at quarterback with Fields?
I thought that Ryan Poles, the general manager, was somewhat honest in what he said. He said, look, we know he's a really good runner. Now, we think we can improve his passing. Now, I guess the question is, do you want to go down a six-back attack? I mean, they gave up the 32nd pick in the draft for Claypool. That's a lot to get. I mean, for a team that has no offense or defensive lineman, that's a lot for a receiver. That's a big price. Claypool went for less than what Tyreek Hill went for more than what Tyreek Hill went. What Tyreek went for 2 and a 4?
That's Claypool
right?
is
Think
not
about
elite.
that.
No, he's not.
He's not elite. He's a nice player.
Nice player.
Nice player. Yeah, but he doesn't tilt the field. He's not a game plan player. You don't go into the Tuesday meetings and say, we got to win with this. We got to take this guy out of the game. So I think, to me, if you're Chicago, you got to ask yourself that question. I mean, where are we going? What are we trying to get accomplished? They just named the new president, Kevin Warren, today, the Big Ten commissioner. So will he have a say in this? Obviously, if you're the president of the team, you want to have a little bit of say on the direction.
A goodbye letter from Derek Carr today to Raiders fans. So that starts the offseason carousel as far as the quarterbacks are concerned. Tom Brady's going to play now. This is me just postulating, so you don't have to back this up. Tom Brady's going to play next year, and it's not going to be with Tampa. So that is fascinating. You have to admit.
I've already said that. I agree with that. I think that's right. I think his contract's up, and I think if he plays next year, and I think I think he'll play for somebody that he's very comfortable with. Sean Payton, maybe. Josh McDaniels, maybe. I don't know. I'm not in Brady's head. I don't know how he's thinking. But I do know from my own experiences, having been in New England, having been around that program, that once you leave that program, you want to get back to it in the worst way. And so I do think that. Now, I think he'll say all the right things. I think they'll play Dallas this weekend, and he'll say all I'm focused on is beating the Cowboys. And if they beat the Cowboys, all I'm focused on is beating whomever else they play. If they play the number one seed or whatever. But I think that's ultimately the conversation.
All I can say as a Lions fan is, man, it just feels so good to have quarterback security going into the offseason because, like I've said all along, that is my guy, Jared Goff, Michael Lombardi.
There is.
Okay, I kid, but one thing is for sure. Because Ben Johnson called good plays, all of a sudden he's now being thought of as a head coach, which is insane. Maybe he is a great leader. I have no clue. If you lose Johnson, the OC, watch Jared Goff. He becomes Jared Goff again, a pumpkin.
Well, I think, too, you got to remember that Goff, this is the best offensive line Goff has ever played behind since he's been in the league.
Correct.
So, now early in the season when the guards, then they had a lot of injuries, it wasn't as good. But now at the end of the year, they gave them time to protect, especially at the tackle position. So, you can build on it. I think Dan Campbell's challenge next year is how do we go from good to great? How do we go from good to great? And that's the biggest stumbling block most teams have in the league. Yeah, we're good. We won 9 games. We're right here. But how do we get great? How do we handle success? We went down to Carolina. We were feeling good about ourselves, and they put up 500 yards on us. So how do we handle success? And I think, at least with Goff, Goff at least took a team to a Super Bowl as part of it. So he's capable of playing well, especially in an indoor stadium like they have. And he won a lot of outdoor games this year, so you can't argue. Now the challenge is how do we get the team around him really, really good?
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.